So let's understand how we are going through this video. This video is divided into two sections. First, we are going through the cheat sheet where we will talk about these 40 plus services with one line explanation. So you can use this cheat sheet before going through the exam. So it will help you to remember these services and how it works and what exactly these services are, where we can use it. So we will start from the AWS architecture. As you know, AWS is spreading, or we can say is available globally. So it is divided into regions and availability zones. So what exactly the region is? Region is a physical location. Okay, it's a physical location around the world where we have clustered data center. That means these clusters of data center is a discrete, or we can say the physical building where we have independent power, cooling, physical security, everything is there. When we club these data center together from the one location, logically it become a availability zone. And when we have multiple availability zone, then we have a region. So how it is structured? It is structured like this. If it is a region, then we have AZ under it, and even these AZ are the logical unit where we have physical data center inside, and these data center has independent power, cooling, everything is separate. So the thing is, when we are looking for redundant environment, we either use to host this environment in multiple availability zone, or if we want a regional based disaster recovery plan, then we will host our application or the infrastructure or the environment in multi-region environment. Means we will host this environment in multiple regions. So we have described what is actually the region and what is availability zone. Then we will talk about the AWS features. What are the features we are covering here? We will talk about the capex and opex. Let's just understand quickly. Capex is a capital expenditure which we normally have to spend in front. It means in our organization where we are talking about the on-prem environment, what will happen? We have to purchase everything in advance. Then we will use it and we will spend OPEX on top of that. But in the cloud, when we move to the cloud, we no need to worry about the capex because it is taken care by cloud service provider. We just need to pay as OPEX. Whatever service we will use, we will need to pay for that one. Then it's about reliability. Reliability is something we have the system. If something happened wrong with the existing system, we always have another system ready. So we can say our environment is more reliable. So AWS provide reliability. Also, it has high computing resources available with AWS. So as per our requirement, we can have high performance environment. And whenever we are exhausted with our resources and we are looking for enhancing the resources or increasing the resources, or sometimes our resources are free and we don't want to pay for that one, then we can release those resources. That comes under scalability. So AWS provide high scalability. Scalability, we have two types of scalability. We have horizontal and vertical. As the name suggests, horizontal is something, it will increase like this way. Suppose our application is running on 2 servers and now we can see there are more traffic. We want to add more servers, then we can add on. So it comes under horizontal scaling. When we are looking for a server where we have the resources like 2 CPU and 4 GB of RAM, and then we see there is less performance of this machine and we want to increase the performance. So what we will do, we will increase the resource on the same machine. So what we will add, let's suppose we are adding 2 more CPU. So now it becomes 4 CPU of this machine and we are adding 4 GB of RAM, then it will become 8 GB of RAM. This type of increasing the resources comes under vertical scaling. This is how we define it. Security, yes, they have the expert team to take care all about the security from the physical layer to the application layer or the presentation layer. Everything is secured in AWS. So it provides highly secure environment. Now we will discuss about the AWS management. That means how we can manage the resources or the services in AWS. So commonly we have 3 options. We can manage services through CLI, that is command line interface, where we can execute some command or run some script, and through this way we can connect with the service and manage those services. Then we have AWS Management Console, which is GUI, It's like a portal where we can log in and see all the services, view all the services, and manage those services. But in the console we have another option that is for mobile application. Yes, but here we can't manage all the services, so there are some selected services which we can use through the mobile application. So we can manage like our billings on the go. While we are traveling, we have the mobile, we can just access that application console and we can manage the billing of our. Then we have AWS Sdk, that is interacting way through the programming. Here we can write our code in popular programming languages like Java, JavaScript, Python, or Go language. So there are multiple. Anyway, we are going to describe these all services mentioned here in details while we will go through the questions. Next, we have the compute section. In the compute section, we will cover the questions related to AWS EC2. EC2 is nothing but a virtual machine in the cloud which is available, or we can say that we can access this machine through the internet. Next, we need to talk about AWS Elastic Beanstalk. AWS Elastic Beanstalk is an application container for deploying and managing applications. Well, next we have AWS ECS, that is Elastic Container Service, and this service is also known as Amazon ECS. It allows us to easily run and manage Docker containers. So it helps us to manage Docker containers across a cluster of Amazon EC2 instances. Next we have AWS Lambda, that is serverless technology. What it do, it's like a function, or we can say the code we need to run to perform our task. Here, as it is serverless, let me write it here, it is serverless. It means that we no need to worry about the underlying infrastructure, means on the server where we are running our code. It will be configured, or we can say procured automatically through by AWS, and we no need to pay anything for the servers on which our code is running. Then where we are getting charged, right? So how it will be charged? It's based on the request, how many times we are running the code, and the duration, how long our code will run. So on that case, we need to pay to AWS. Now we will talk about one more important section, or we can say the core service, that is storage. Let's understand one by one. Here we will talk about these five storage services. These are the important one where we will cover the question. So if we'll talk about in short, like Elastic Block Storage, what actually it is, whenever we install any instance, okay, when we create any instance, so you know your OS will be installed somewhere in the storage, right? So this type of storage which is attached to our instance is known as Elastic Block Store. And this is very high performance, and we have two types of we can configure. Either we can take HDD like in our laptop or PC, or it can be of SDD type. So we'll talk in details while go through the questions. Now we have Amazon S3. Amazon S3 storage is kind of a storage which is used for frequent access, or we can host static websites there. Or we can say how this S3 stands for. It's a simple storage service, that's why it is short. In short, we known as S3. So Amazon simple storage service can be used to store and retrieve any amount of data. So it can be used for any purpose like video, text, any type of data can be stored here. If we will talk about next service, that is Amazon EFS, that is Elastic File Service, Elastic File System, sorry. So Elastic File System is a file storage service for Amazon Elastic Cloud Compute, like for EC2s. So it's like a file server in AWS, we can say. Next we have AWS Storage Gateway. AWS Storage Gateway is used in hybrid environment. So whenever we have any environment in our on-prem and we are looking for a disaster recovery setup, and we want that setup should be in cloud, then at that time we can use AWS Storage Gateway. Or we can say when we are running application in our organization, or we can say in on-prem, and we want to use the feasibility of cloud storage, in that case also we can use AWS Storage Gateway. Next is Amazon Glacier, that is used when we want to keep data for longer period of time. That means whenever we need to use it for the archive purpose, archive data which is not frequently used, we can keep it for longer period of time. So whenever we are looking for cheap solution for that one, then it is Amazon Glacier. So whenever you see anything in the questions related to cost perspective, or we want to optimize the cost, then we will go for Amazon Glacier. Now we will talk about the security services, what exactly these services are. So here we are talking about the key management services. So we have two key management services here. One is AWS KMS, that is stands for key management service. Next we have AWS Cloud Hsm, that is hardware security module. So both the services used for key management and used for data encryption. Then what is the difference between those? Sorry, encryption. Okay, then what is the difference? It is dedicated for single tenant, and AWS KMS can be used for multi-tenant. And both the services can be used for generating usage or replace keys within AWS. Next we have AWS Sealed Service. AWS Sealed Service is used to protect our environment. When I am talking about the environment, this component can be EC2, your virtual machine, it can be your load balancer, it can be anything related to your environment from DDoS attack. DDoS is stand for distributed denial of service. How it works: whenever we want to, suppose I'm a hacker or some unauthorized person, I want that your server should not work. So what I'll do, through the script I'll send multiple traffic to your server. So what, as we know, our server works in a way like first in first out. So if you will get more requests from me, then you are not able to cater the original request or authentic request. In that way our service get hang, and in this case it will not work. So AWS Shield help us to protect from DDoS attacks. Next we have AWS WAF, that is web application firewall. As you know, it help us to protect our web application from the attacks. What types of attacks we are having? We have the attacks like CVE, that is for, stands for common vulnerabilities exposure, or it can be SQL injections, or it can be CSS, cross-site scripting. So these type, whenever you see these terms, then you can directly go for AWS WAF service. Next we have AWS Messy service. So what exactly the Amazon Messy service is? Amazon Messy is a fully managed data security and data privacy service that uses machine learning, and it will help us to protect our sensitive data in AWS with the matching patterns. Next service we are having Amazon Guard Duty. So what exactly this Amazon Guard Duty service is? Amazon Guard Duty is a threat detection service that continuously monitors our AWS accounts and our workloads in our environment for any malicious activities, and deliver detailed security findings for the visibility and their remediation. So whenever there is any vulnerabilities found or any malicious activities this service found, it helps us to remediate those vulnerabilities. So we covered the we will cover the questions related to these services in this video. Next we are talking about the networking services. So let's start from the internet gateway. What exactly it is? Whenever we want to communicate with our instance to the internet, and we want this connection should be bidirectional. Suppose whenever we want to expose our web server to the internet and we want to make communication between that, we will use internet gateway. So just keep in mind, whenever your instance in our AWS environment want to connect to internet, it will, when it is talking about the bidirectional connection, we will use internet gateway, and we need to make sure this instance should have the public IP. So this connection will be through the public IP of this instance. So now let's talk about net gateway, how it works. So this is also used when we need to connect our instance with the internet. The only thing is here we will have only one-way connection, means this instance should be in private subnet. I'm talking about here. Okay, this instance in the internet gateway, it should be in public subnet. Here it should be in private subnet, and when we need to connect this instance to the internet and get downloads, the patches and security updates, in that case we use net gateway. So internet gateway and net gateway help us to connect through the internet. What exactly the net instance? As here net gateway is managed by AWS, it is fully managed service. It is managed manually. So whenever we create instance through the net AMI, means the template which is can be used for NAT net, and then we configure this instance to work as a NAT gateway, and here the maintenance of this machine or instance will be done by us. So that is the NAT instance. What is AWS Direct Connect? AWS Direct Connect is something when we need to connect our organization infrastructure, or we can say on-prem infrastructure, to AWS. In this case, we will use AWS Direct Connect. Here we will have the dedicated connection, and it is through the fiber cables. And next part, whenever we want to extend our infrastructure with the cloud, then we will use AWS Direct Connect. Next we have AWS Manage Vpn. This service is also used to connect our organization with AWS. The only difference is here we will not have any dedicated connection. It will be through the software defined settings, so through which normally right now when we are doing work from home, we are connecting our environment through the VPN. This is the same. Next we have the security group and network access control list. These both work as a virtual firewall. What is the difference then? Security groups works at the instance level, so we will define security groups here in the instance level, and AWS network access control list will be defined at the subnet level. That means it will be defined at subnet level. Let me write it here. And security groups at the instance level. Next we have VPC. VPC stands for Virtual Private Cloud. So what actually this service is, it helps us to launch AWS resources either in private subnet or the public subnet. That means it is a isolated cloud. In a region we can create our own VPC, we can provide the subnet range, and then we will provide the subnets and we will host the instance inside the VPC. So this is how we define the VPC. And what is VPC peering? As we know, we can have VPC multiple VPC in a single region. Suppose this is region 1 and we have 2 VPC here, and we have another region that is R2. Here also we have 2 VPC. So VPC peering, we can have 2 types. In detail we will go through the question. Just understand, whenever we connect the VPC within the same region, it will be known as local VPC peering, and when we connect different VPC from different regions, that will be remote VPC peering. Next we have VPC Flow Logs. So what exactly it is? So VPC Flow Logs is a feature that enables us to capture information about the IP address traffic going to and from our network interface in our VPC. So it will be used to capture the information about the IP traffic. Next service we have Elastic Load Balancer. What exactly it is? Load Balancer is something which is we kept it in front of our backend server. These backend server can be your web servers. So we suppose here we have 3 web servers, so we kept one load balancer here. So whenever any client want to communicate these web servers, it will direct this traffic through the load balancer. This request will come to load balancer, and load balancer will check which server is free to cater that request. On the basis of availability, it will send, or it's based on the settings which we define. It can be round robin or highly weightage. It's all depend on the configuration how the traffic will be sent from load balancer to backend servers. Now we have covered all the services in this video. Now we have some concept that we need to understand. Those are the important concept whenever, because in this exam we can get the questions based on scenario, and we need to understand these concepts. So first concept is microservices. So what microservices concept also we can understand through the loosely coupled applications. So there are tight coupled application and loosely coupled application. So if you remember, in early days, or we can say traditional environment, we can have the application where all the components are tightly coupled. That means if there is any maintenance to any of the component, we need to sit down or take the downtime for all the components, either it is web server or DB server or some other server belongs to that application. But in loosely coupled environment, what happens, these components are loosely coupled. So if we want to maintain to perform maintenance on one of the component, we just need to shut down the services related to that component until and unless it impact all the application. This way we can use loosely coupled application. Next concept is why to deploy application in multiple availability zones. So whenever we want to make our environment redundant and we are looking for a condition where we can have failure in one availability zone, then we will host our environment or the server in multiple AZ. So between the availability zone, we will have the low latency. Next we have AWS Auto Scaling. So auto scaling is something when we need to increase or decrease resource based on the conditions or the traffic, or it's depend on the resources required on the machines. If they require more, then if we set it auto scaling, then it will automatically increase or decrease the resources. Next we have AWS Cloud Trail. So what exactly the AWS Cloud Trail service is? So AWS Cloud Service provides us to the better visibility about the user's activity, or we can say the services activity, what kind of actions it has been taken for the services. It can as we know, we can manage our services through, it can be used by the users or the APIs, that is our programming interface, to connect through the services, what kind of actions we are taking on the services. These all things recorded by this Cloud Trail and mentioned as an event, so it can be used for auditing purpose for in future for the compliance. So this is how we understood about all the services mentioned here. So we have gone through the concept. Now it's time to go through the questions with their explanation. While going through the question, I'll explain all the services in bit detail, and also the explanation of what we did now, it will help you to remember or make the answers correct there. And I'll share some tricks how we can identify and which service need to be used in that particular use case. So this is how we will cover this video. So guys, that's it in this video. I hope you like the content of this video. This video will definitely help you to learn about the AWS services, how to tackle the questions. It will help you to build your tricks so you can remember these services for longer period of time, and it will help you during your exams as well. So if you find it helpful, then don't forget to click on like button, share with your friends, as we know that good deeds always work for you whenever you need it. So just try to help as much as, and subscribe this channel for more content. So see you in next video. Keep learning, keep growing.